These guys go to battle. So let's get started with our panel discussion today. I have Sean Ashby. He's a Democrat. I think you're new to the show, Sean, right?
I am. This is my first time.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. He's with the Orange County Democrats. He ran for the State House. He also ran for Orange County Commission, but he is also now in the running for the chairman of the Orange County Democrats. So, Sean, thank you very much for being here. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Longtime friend of the program, Lew Oliver, chairman of the Orange County Republicans. Always has a lot to say. Can't wait to see what he has to say about what's happened over the last 3 weeks. And my good friend, Orlando Sentinel columnist Scott Maxwell, who rushed on over here to help me out today to stir things up. Wouldn't be the same without you, Scott.
Glad to be here.
All right, let's get started. Of course, the big news over the past week is the fact that Charlie Crist, former Republican, now Democrat, is running for governor. Let's go ahead and take a little look at the snippet that he has online, a part of ads that he is preparing to air clearly all over the state. Let's take a look.
It's not working. Only you, the people, can end this nonsense and get us back to common sense. That's the way forward. Tell me how I can help. Share your comments with me here. I'll read every last one. I work for you, the people. Always have and always will.
This is the Tell Me Your Stories, Give Me Your Comments ad, and he promises to read every last one. So, Lew, I'm going to start with Lew. Let's get fired up here, Lew. Have you seen any of these ads? They're very long-winded. Right now, they're internet ads, and so they can go on for over a minute. And he just talks a lot about the dysfunction, the attacks he believes on several different groups that happen to be huge Democratic voter blocks by Governor Rick Scott and that administration. Your thoughts so far?
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be an interesting race. It's an interesting story when a governor for one party changes and starts running with the other side. And it'll be an interesting test of the patience, I think, of voters to some extent, and also a test to figure out the age-old question about, do voters really care more about personalities and faces and great hair or about the policies, and whether or not people are consistent from one administration to the next. Because while Rick Scott may have a different style of governing than Charlie Crist did, substantively you would be hard-pressed to find a great deal of difference in legislative agendas, appointments, policies, and the rest that go along with that. So it'll be
Give me an example. I mean, you really think there's not much difference between what Governor Crist did and what Governor Scott is doing?
Not greatly. The policies that the legislature pursued and the bills that the governor signed are not dramatically different. There are a couple that gained a lot of attention, like drug testing of employees or welfare recipients and the like. But the broad policies on reduction of taxes, if you go back and play a Charlie Crist speech from not very long ago, really just a few years ago, he'll talk about lowering taxes, making a business environment, you know, safe for families and the rest of it. And I'm sure that rhetoric will change because it's a different audience and a different group that he's got to win over in a primary.
Yeah, apparently, Sean, Governor Scott already has an ad put together getting ready to hit, I don't know, whether it's nowadays I wonder if the internet is even more, powerful than television buys. I shouldn't say that, because you helped to pay my salary. But either way,
it's all newspaper ads. That's
newspaper ads. Way to go. But Sean, apparently Rick Scott's already got an ad talking with Democrats trashing Governor Crist as a flip-flopper, Alex Sink, Kedrick Meek. I mean, clearly from other races, but there is the issue that he has changed his mind about a lot of things.
True, but Governor Scott is in a position right now where he's in the hole. I mean, his numbers, approval ratings are so low right now. He's already seen the writing on the wall, and so he's got to get out to the voters. He doesn't even know who he's actually going to be going up against, because we've got a primary between Nan Ridge and Charlie Crist coming up in August. So he's already going out there guns blazing because he realizes he's already in a bad position. And Governor Crist, with this ad that we just saw a second ago, he's already reintroducing himself to the citizens of the state of Florida, going from Republican governor to independent to now Democrat. He's reintroducing. He's wanting to explain to the people of the state of Florida who he is, what he's standing for, going forward, and obviously he wants to be governor.
So is this Democratic primary going to be a real primary, or is this pretty much an anointed Democratic runner.
No, it's going to be a real primary. You've got obviously former Governor Crist, former Republican independent Democrat, now running for governor against Nan Rich, a Democrat who's been in the party for so long, has been a very strong leader. And so these two individuals will have to go to the citizens of the state of Florida and encourage them to vote for them, to say we are the one who can take out Rick Scott in Tallahassee.
Here's the Democratic Party guy, Scott, but is this a done deal?
Yeah, it is. Sean's trying to...
I say I wish it weren't, but I think he's wrong. I think it's a done deal. I really wish it weren't. I'd rather take on Nan Rich.
Sean is trying to be very diplomatic, but Nan Rich could bounce off most people's car hoods and they still wouldn't recognize who she was. This is going to be Charlie Crist, and it's going to be a fascinating race. I disagree with Lew that their policies were similar. Rick Scott really ticked off a lot of constituencies, and I'd say legitimately so, pretty quick off. Teachers, cuts to the disabled, a lot of the more vulnerable classes right off the bat in a way that Charlie Crist did not. In fact, he was largely lauded by teachers. They've both flip-flopped. I mean, they have both flip-flopped on all kinds of things.
Rick Scott flip-flopped on teachers. He may not have flipped on immigration. Let's put it this way. They may not actually have the raises yet in their in their bank accounts, but he sure made a big deal of saying that they were going to get them.
Well,
right?
and if you look back, his whole primary campaign was, I'm going to crack down on immigration. I'm going to bring Arizona-style reform. He did none of that. I mean, literally nothing. He flopped on E-Verify and everything else. But Charlie, I mean, we used to time Charlie Crist flip-flops by the minute hand. He one time came to our editorial board and made one promise, and 40 minutes later, we got a call from the executive office. Yeah, we're going to have to back on that. I mean, they've both done it. It's going to be a fascinating race, and if it goes merely to Lew's point on personality, Charlie Crist will run away with it. The man is like the mother from Bambi who's dying in the fire. I mean, he's so doe-eyed, you want to hug him even when he drives you crazy.
Okay. That is true. You could not have, which goes to Lew's original point, you could not have more different on-camera candidates. I mean, I have met Governor Scott. I spoke to him at length at one point in time. He is much more relaxed and much more personable in person. But Lew, let me ask you a question about this, because there is a difference between Governor Crist, who has been a political animal for a very long time, and Rick Scott, who was not necessarily a political animal. He came from private business, got to Tallahassee, and then frankly had what I would guess was a rude awakening about what he would really actually have to do with his agenda. Can you speak to that? And do you think the voters have actually responded to that at all?
Well, it's too soon to tell. You know, the half-life of politics, the half-memory of the average voter's memory in politics is maybe half a baseball season. So nothing is over until it's over. Remember that when Rick Scott first got into the Republican primary for governor, nobody could pronounce his name. They had no idea where he came from, and he won a primary out of nowhere, and general expectation was he didn't have a great chance at winning a general election. So one of the things you can say about Rick Scott is he has a demonstrated history of being underestimated.
Yeah.
That said,
can we just do this real quick, though? Well, there was a little bit of this involved, right?
Lots of people,
a little bit of this.
Lots of people have spent lots of money. He's not the first candidate to spend a lot of money and win, but there are an awful lot of candidates in similar positions who have spent comparable sums of money and lost. And yes, there was clearly a learning curve. I think he'd be the first person to tell you that. When he got to Tallahassee, he had an executive's mentality about how you operate a corporation and a business.
My way or the highway?
In short, that's probably not an unreasonable statement to make, and that's where he came from in the private sector. And Tallahassee, any place in politics, is a rude awakening. You're quite startled to find out that people with very different backgrounds who maybe haven't run a Fortune 500 company still think they're entitled to an opinion and get pretty fussy about it. But what you have described as flip-flopping and what Scott has mentioned as flip-flopping and the like may be just a learning curve. And at the end of the day, you know, really and truly, I think voters probably, I hate to say this because it's probably the best ammunition against somebody like Charlie Crist, is that I don't really think they care. I think they care about what are my issues today when I go to the polling booth, and how do I feel about the candidate, how do I feel about my life, is the world getting better, is my state getting better, and so forth.
As a teacher at Timber Creek High School, Sean, I mean, do you think these original cuts, whether, you know, the legislature makes a lot of these cuts, and we know they make a lot of decisions that hurt people, but the governor is the one who signs the final checks, right? So do you believe that people will forgive Rick Scott regardless on some of these drastic cuts that were made that have hurt people like teachers?
He has burned so many bridges when it comes to education right now. We've got an education system that he cut. It took him months before he actually, being in office, took him months before he actually stepped foot in a public school. One of the first places he went to, if I remember right, was a charter school where he went in there. That's just sending the wrong message automatically. And then, off to, Lou's point a second ago, that there was a learning curve there. I don't think Governor Scott's figured out that learning curve yet because, for example, earlier this year, Governor Scott came out and said we're going to give a $2,500 raise to every single teacher across the state of Florida. But as a governor, he's got to realize you can't just automatically go, here's for everybody. There's the Florida Constitution guarantees collective bargaining, so everything has to be collectively bargained. And now we're seeing that money that was originally set for $2,500 has now been trickled down because little bits pulled off here, little bits pulled off here because they didn't even write the bill correctly to go with what Governor Scott wanted in the first place.
All right, I got to take a break, but one last question to you, Scott. Do we have a tally on his jobs? How many he actually created? I mean, wasn't that his big...
Yeah, I think one of the problems here is he tried to rewrite reality a little bit here, is that he's 700,000
right,
jobs.
Exactly.
But early on, a bunch of economists came up and they said basically you could put a blind monkey in front of a typewriter and we'd get 700,000 jobs. So quickly, Alex Sink, who was running at the time, and Rick Scott said, well, we're going to do 700,000 on top of 1 million, 1.7. That was his original promise, 1.7 million. Nowhere close to that. I don't blame him for all that. I also don't credit him for all those jobs. But yeah, you're going to hear him talking about nothing but jobs, and he'll be able to say correctly
as well,
the economy
he probably should be, though, because isn't that where it's supposed to be? Which brings me to my next topic coming up in the next block, national politics. We had some big races in the nation right now. It's all any of the cable channels can talk about. But what really do they mean to the state of Florida? Do they have any effect as we sit there and watch things happening in the rest of the country? We'll be right back here on Flashpoint. Stay with us.